Tonight, the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation and the province have reached an impasse on contract negotiations. Also, final arguments at a Saskatoon murder trial, a decision hanging on how surveillance footage is interpreted. Plus, volunteers scarf bomb a neighborhood in Regina.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, December 13th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thank you for watching. We'll get to the teachers' contract negotiations in just a moment, but first, we're going to take you live to the Saskatchewan Legislature. We are 12 days out from Christmas, but we are right in the middle of another holiday festival being celebrated around the world. Our Laura Sharpaletti joins us now live from where the Premier was part of the lighting of a menorah to celebrate Hanukkah. Laura, this is a tough time for people with family in Israel. What's the feeling like down there?
I'd say it's a mixture, Sam. People are definitely here in a celebratory mood. There's upbeat music. Lots of people have smiles on their faces, and they're just really excited to celebrate Hanukkah in this season. But I have spoken with members of the organizational committee as well, who say they're also thinking about family back in Israel and everything that they're going through, and they're thinking about them as they go through this evening. But they also want us to know that people here in Regina are suffering as well. And so it's a night that they say to celebrate Hanukkah, but to also think of those who are struggling both here at home and over in Israel.
So for people who aren't familiar with the Jewish celebration, where are we at in Hanukkah?
Well, it's an 8-day festival of lights that happens obviously every single year, and it began last Thursday with the first lighting on the menorah. Tonight we've got another lighting, and it ends on Friday. So we're not quite there just yet. We're not halfway through, but we're about 3/4 of the way through.
All right, thanks, Laura. That's the CBC's Laura Sharpaletti live in Regina tonight. Now, the contract dispute between the Saskatchewan Teachers Union and the provincial government has reached an impasse. After 5 days of negotiation talks, neither have landed on satisfactory terms. As Dane Patterson reports, talks are now at a standstill.
On Tuesday, teachers received a note saying that bargaining with the province had reached an impasse. The next morning, the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation released a statement. It says the government wouldn't budge on issues like classroom sizes, fewer split classes, and violence in the classroom.
Unfortunately, we continue to see the government hold firm in their position and refuse to negotiate on really the biggest issues that teachers have been bringing forward. And not just teachers, parents and students. We want to see the best education system here in Saskatchewan.
This comes after months of back and forth. The union says negotiations for teachers' contracts began in May. In July, a province-led billboard campaign suggested teachers were making above-average wages compared to other Western provinces. In October, a nearly 2,000-person rally in support of teachers. The day after, an overwhelming vote of 95% in favor of sanctions after a previous contract impasse.
We need to see government start to address some of the significant challenges that teachers and students are facing in classrooms now. And if they're not willing to, really, they're forcing teachers to apply additional pressure.
But BCOT says that's not a route teachers want to take, and the opposition is siding with teachers.
This is because teachers are desperate to see changes in the classroom that support them in their work and support Saskatchewan children.
In a statement, the Ministry of Education said they are committed to bargaining in good faith. It claims the STF cancelled meetings and walked away earlier in the process. It also says the ministry's proposed offer of 7% over 3 years does recognize teachers' important work. One expert says that number is below the average of what some unions have taken in this period of heightened inflation.
Another way to look at it would be that it's a bit higher historically than when it was say 5 to 10 years ago, but again, those were also periods of relatively lower inflation.
The teachers union says its executive has the authority to implement sanctions at any point during the school year. That could include things like a strike. The teachers union also says it will continue to bargain in good faith while it awaits the conciliators report. Dane Patterson, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Final arguments were made in a Saskatoon murder trial this afternoon. It's now up to a jury to decide whether to convict Afra Abdi of second-degree murder. Their decision hinges on how they interpret surveillance footage from a Saskatoon bar. Dan Zakreski brings us the story and a warning. Some of the details are graphic.
It's almost an hour past closing time, and trouble is brewing. That's the shooter in the bottom right, between the two men with hats. Logan Nana Kasem, the victim, wearing a white hat, joins the group. Staff at Area Food and Spirits say they knew the alleged shooter by the nickname Tax. He was a regular at the Rosewood Bar. The Crown says his real name is Afra Abdi. So here's the question. Is the man in the photo and in the video the same man sitting across from jurors in court? Both the Crown and the defense agree that identity is the key issue in this trial. There's no audio, so jurors can't hear what the men are arguing about, but it escalates to pushing and punches. Nana Kasem, still wearing his white hat, gets Tax in a bear hug. Another man then gets Nana Kasem in a chokehold. Tax spins out and then waves a gun in Nana Kasem's face, who is holding up his hands. And while we won't show the actual shooting, the video continues on, and Nana Kasem is shot in the back of his right leg. Pathologist Sean Latham says the bullet went right through Logan Nana Kasem's leg and severed two major blood vessels. He said it was like cutting a hose. Nana Kasem died within an hour. Police found a spent shell casing on the bar floor. They followed the bullet's path as it bounced off the base of a table, went through a bench seat cushion, finally coming to rest in a planter on a windowsill. The defense says there's no physical evidence linking Afra Abdi to the shooting. In fact, the lawyer says there's nothing proving that Tax and Abdi are the same person. But the prosecutor says that witnesses at the bar identified Tax as the shooter. And jurors need only watch the video and then look at the man in court to make the connection. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A convicted sex offender who was living in Saskatchewan has entered a plea agreement south of the border. In August of 2022, Benjamin Moore cut through a fence to drive across the Canada-U.S. border with two Saskatchewan children and their mother. An agreement filed in a South Dakota court last week says Moore will plead guilty to possession of child pornography. It carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison and supervised release for 5 years to life. The 7-year-old girl and 8-year-old boy were the center of an Amber Alert after they were not found at their home in East End. Moore was arrested 2 days later in a South Dakota campground. RCMP are warning about a dangerous strain of fentanyl circulating in the Moose Jaw and Swift Current areas. They say this fentanyl looks the same as other circulating strains and that it may be resistant to naloxone. That's the drug used to temporarily reverse the effects of opioid overdose. RCMP say its members have responded to fatal overdoses in southern Saskatchewan in the past few months, but they are unable to provide a total or confirm which deaths were potentially caused by this strain. Regina City Council has passed the first part of its municipal budget, greenlighting the 2024 budget for the Regina Police Service. The police net operating budget of $102.7 million was approved in a vote of 9-2 after hours of debate. It's an increase of $4.6 million over last year, but a drop from what was originally agreed to as part of the city's multi-year budgeting process. Deputy Police Chief Dean Ray served as the interim chief of police for 5 months and welcomes council's decision.
We've said all along that we can work with our community, and we can make whatever comes out as a result of the budget work for the Regina Police Service. So we have 6 new bodies on the front line. We have 1 civilian member, and our capital ask was a bit less than what we had anticipated, but we're still going to be able to meet the expectations the community has placed on us.
The government of Saskatchewan will also fund 2 new police officers. Regina City Council is expected to continue budget deliberations before ultimately reaching a decision sometime on Thursday. A new report from Statistics Canada indicates the amount Canadians owe relative to their income dipped slightly. On average, they owe $1.82 in debt for every dollar of disposable household income. That's actually a slight improvement from the previous quarter. It shows that people are bringing in more disposable income than they owe in credit debt. But the cost of servicing that debt has crept higher. The cost of borrowing has risen since the Bank of Canada started raising interest rates last year. Well, we're reaching the middle of December, and still Regina City crews are struggling to make ice. But as you can see here, they are certainly trying. This rink near Lakeview School, along with all other outdoor rinks in the city, still not quite ready for the season. Will the temperatures drop enough for the ice to stay frozen after today's toasty weather? Ethan will have the answers in his forecast when we come back. Welcome back. If you're looking to add a little magic to your holiday season, it might be worth bundling up and heading out for a late night walk tonight. It's the peak of the annual Geminid meteor shower, and to learn more, we check in with an astronomer.
During the winter months of December and January, we have two of the strongest meteor showers of the year, the Geminids, which occur around December 13th and 14th, and then the Quadratids, which occur around January 3rd and 4th. So even though the weather might be colder, you might be in store for seeing some really beautiful shooting stars or meteors over the next little while. Most major meteor showers are caused by periodic comets or even asteroids, and it just so happens that this particular Geminid meteor shower occurs due to the Earth passing through debris left behind by a very strange object called 3200 Phaethon. This object, it doesn't look like a comet, but it looks more like a rocky kind of stone in space, like an asteroid. So that's the parent body where all this material that we see passing through the atmosphere comes from. And every time these comets or even this particular dusty kind of asteroid pass the inner solar system, they leave in their wake a whole bunch of debris. And it just so happens that that path of the comet, or in this case the asteroid, sort of passes the orbit of the Earth. So every year around this particular time, around December 13th and 14th, the Earth is plowing through this material, and that gives us this yearly meteor shower that we call the Geminid meteor shower. Now in the early evening, when the sun goes down, you can look for this particular constellation just rising off towards the northeast part of the sky. But by local midnight time, 1 in the morning, that radiance of the shower, the point where all the meteors are coming away from that point in the constellation of Gemini, is going to be right overhead. The best way of watching a meteor shower is really just to use your eyes alone. You're not going to be looking at any one area in particular, because these meteors will be found streaming over the sky in every direction, but always streaming away from the constellation of Gemini. So just find a nice location, set up a lawn chair, look up. Don't use binoculars or telescopes. Those are not needed for a meteor shower, and just look up with your eyes alone and experience nature's wonder.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. 2023 model clear-out is on now.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now with how ridiculously warm it is. We might as well get outside and look up.
Yeah, it's going to be a great night. A lot of us across the province going to be seeing some clear skies for that meteor shower as well. And in fact, you can see over 100 meteors per hour potentially with this. We'll be seeing some clear skies in parts of the province. For others, especially in the north, might be a little bit more clear cloud cover for you folks. Peak of this actually going to be about between 8 and 9 o'clock our time tonight. So really it'll be early enough that you don't have to stay up late or stay up in the overnight hours to see this sort of thing happening. And it's going to be a warm night, of course, as well, as I mentioned, and so warm that in fact temperatures will be in the low single digits in the north. The number that you see on the left is the forecast low and for tonight, and the number on the right is what it should be this time of year in that part of the province. Some 20 to 25 degrees above seasonal throughout much of northern Saskatchewan. And it's not just the north seeing this unseasonal warmth. It, of course, has been the southern half of the province as well. Regina, we're dropping fairly quickly right now. We're down to 2 degrees, but earlier this afternoon we hit 9. We hit double digits in Maple Creek and Leader today, hitting 10. And that warmth likely going to continue, and that is thanks in part To our wind direction, you see most gusts through the province coming from the southwest. So we have that nice Pacific air, nice air, warmer air from the south as well moving in. And those winds have been gusty at times. Even right now, we're seeing those into the 30 to 40 range throughout much of the province. Now, here is that cloud cover I was talking about in northern Saskatchewan. That should begin to thin out overnight tonight. But for south and central, I think we will stay mostly clear. Tomorrow, as we start to head through the day, we are seeing a little bit of a system developing. I've been talking about this for the past couple of days, and really it's played out exactly how we think it's going to here. It starts moving in the overnight hours tomorrow, and by the time it crosses into west central Saskatchewan, we're just left with some flurries and cloud cover before things clear out again as we head into Friday. Low pressure system could be bringing through a little bit of snow to far northern Saskatchewan through the day on Saturday. More likely that is going to pick up wind gusts, though. We could see those in the 40 to 50 range in the far north. Not so much in southern Saskatchewan. That system will pass us by as we head into Friday. Now, in terms of the forecast for Regina and much of southern Saskatchewan, tomorrow a high of 2, but keep in mind we got well above our daytime high today, so there is the possibility that we could shoot above that again tomorrow. The next few days will be like that too. We'll be hovering roughly around freezing, but we definitely could overshoot that. A little bit of wind with that system passing through the north as we head into Saturday, and then temperatures from there dropping slightly below freezing, bit more cloud cover. Overall, those minus single digits continuing in the overnight hours for Regina. For Saskatoon, pretty much an identical story. Here we're looking for a mix of sun and cloud and 2 degrees tomorrow. The weekend looking nice again, a little bit of wind possible here and there Saturday. Temperatures could drop into the mid-minus single digits by about Tuesday, Wednesday, but even still, that is above seasonal for this time of year. I feel like a broken record, Sam. I'm running out of things to say about all this.
Not those mid-minus single digits.
Oh, I know. The heat, the warmth, yeah, so many things to say.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Let's light up the night.
It is just 12 days till Christmas, and some of the world's best-known retailers are making the festive season in New York. Saks Fifth Avenue has teamed up with Meteor to present a Carousel of Dreams. The immersive show covers all 10 stories of the flagship store. Bergdorf Goodman continued its 150-year tradition of decorated windows with the theme Isn't It Brilliant? Bloomingdale's partnered with the movie Wonka, and Macy's invited visitors to sing and take pictures with the theme Give Love. We'll be back after the break. The COP28 climate conference has wrapped up with some groundbreaking language in its final communique, but it still falls short in the minds of many. Susan Ormiston has the details.
Hearing no objection, it is so decided.
And so COP28 came to a dramatic close. The oil executive who guided these talks helped pull out a climate deal after nearly losing it.
Make no mistake, historic package to accelerate climate action. It is the UAE consensus.
At dawn, the final day with COP into overtime.
One cappuccino.
Some caffeinated energy just in time for a new draft of the agreement, including the most contentious issue, fossil fuels. The global stocktake, the agreement, calls on governments to transition away from fossil fuels, accelerating action in this critical decade.
It's a pretty extraordinary turn of events for this process, where we've spent the last 30 years talking about climate change and talking about emissions, but never talking about the cause of those emissions, fossil fuels.
Saudi Arabia and others had been blocking the targeting of fossil fuels.
Will you be asking for changes, sir?
But after all-night negotiations, they did not formally object.
I think there were times in the last 48 hours where some of us thought this could fail.
CCS is a lie.
The pressure for a phase-out or phase-down with protests till the final hours fell short. Those words read lines for several oil-producing countries. The agreement is non-binding, and critics pointed to loopholes, which could benefit oil and gas expansion.
It doesn't say that we need to end the expansion of fossil fuel production.
which we do, actually.
And in a consensus vote, there were still objections from the small island states.
Course correction that is needed has not been secured.
That drew a standing ovation and comfort for another delegate who was overcome with the moment.
It's not the transformational leap that we all need. Thank you so much.
But there were clear directions to triple renewable energy such as solar by 2030. A loss and damage fund with millions of dollars pledged. An early win for Al Jaber's team, who formally wrapped up the conference with a golden gavel. Dubai's COP made progress, but it's incremental. The UAE, which hosted the largest climate conference ever, will consider this a success. But scientists warn that the world is already far off its targets set back in Paris 8 years ago and needs to transition faster. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Dubai.
And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
Well, might as well just click play on the recorder of myself because the weather forecast pretty much the same as where we left it the last few days. Nice warm evening again if you're checking out the meteor shower in Regina, -3 at midnight. Winds dying down a little bit as well. Still keeping those sunny skies around by tomorrow morning. -7 to start the day. A little bit of wind probably making that feel closer to about -13. But again, by the afternoon, we're above the freezing mark. And again, may stretch even further with some nice light westerly winds. For Saskatoon, we'll be right around freezing. Still a little bit breezy at midnight, but things mostly clear, and they'll be mostly sunny by the morning as well by -5. And as we head toward the afternoon, a little bit more cloud cover for the Saskatoon area, but a similar temperature right around 1 degree. We'll see if that temperature jumps above what is forecast as well, Sam.
Oh, who knows at this point?
True.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Before we leave you, something to warm your hearts and a community. Today, volunteers gathered together to scarf bomb the Heritage neighborhood in Regina.
Merry, Merry Christmas to you all.
This started all because of a winter initiatives grant through the City of Regina. We had applied to warm up Heritage, and the first year was when actually Camp Hope was set up down at Pepsi Park, so it made it a little bit extra special. We just seen the need was so dire, so that was our first year. When we put stuff out, they're usually gone within seconds or minutes, and so that tells us that the need is there. It actually is very humbling to see somebody pick a scarf up off a tree branch or a blanket off of a bench, or even just to be able to sit on a cold bench with a blanket is pretty amazing.
Merry, Merry Christmas.
We actually collect scarves all year round. We're usually around 1,000 warm items, so that's between socks, scarves, blankets. Angels for Warmth have been absolutely amazing to us. Month after month they bring us stuff, and then we tag it, we use some of it as we need it, and then we save the bulk of it for winter, which is starting today for us. We consider everybody in this community our neighbors, whether they have a roof or not, and that everybody matters in this community, and making these moments matter, because for some people today this is really important, to have some entertainment, to have a warm beverage, and to potentially dole a new scarf or a new toque is really special.
Kudos to them for doing that work. That is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to our website. You can subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel or download the CBC News app on your phone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.